Okay, welcome to the panel on how to make escape rooms at conventions that are not called Minami. This is ours. You can't have it. Has anyone here never done an escape room before? Because I can. Okay, cool. We'll begin that again. What is an escape room? It is a collection of puzzles that form some sort of sequence or explain some story or fit in some sort of theme, where your goal is to leave the room by solving all the puzzles. There are lots of recipe companies out there. You've got wonderfully custom-built rooms with buildings with clever wiring and full stores and all sorts of things. We're talking about pop-up escape rooms running conventions. You don't get to have.
Yeah, so the first lock room that I did was actually a very similar one where it was a pop-up one, and that's what inspired me and the rest of the team to go ahead and make the one here, and we've been running for 5 years.
I was helping out from, I played the first one and started helping out for the next 4, and I've got better as it's got along.
Yeah,
Done more each year.
So when you're making one for here, there's a number of different things that you have to think about compared to what Don was just saying, where you're approaching a dedicated one. They would have spent months planning all of this, and they have a considerably bigger budget than we have.
And I've actually stuck in a couple of tips from a Korean escape room show, where they have a budget I'm incredibly jealous of. Enormous sets, including like disused military bases and underground nuclear bunkers, and all the things you cannot do if running an escape room in a hotel.
It's fine. How do we want to make the next one? One of the earlier Nice. Some of the stuff we make from recycling things we already have, there's been a few bits and pieces we've paid for. But it's not
raiding the charity shops and going, I can turn this into a puzzle, I'm sure. Okay, so pop-up escape rooms. Right, so you are going to go into a room that has not been designed to be an escape room. It is probably a hotel room, or maybe a hotel bedroom, and you have to make your escape room occupy that space. And there's going to be everything that you bring into your room has got to sell your theme, sell your story, and double up with your puzzles, and not confuse people. Because they are going to get confused by the fact that there's a radiator in the room. And despite the fact they are in a hotel room with a radiator, they will assume that that radiator is somehow part of the escape room, but you have manufactured a perfect replica one for the hotel room.
In fact, was it this room? We actually had somebody trying to take the TV off the wall. And it's like the fixed assets that we are working around. So we hope pretty obvious what is not fixed.
And so this year we've been the same in the last 2-3 years for small meeting upstairs, and I designed a puzzle around the shape of the room. We tell the Friday and Pete goes, oh yeah, we moved the room. And I went, okay, cool, I'll just remake the entire puzzle in the next half hour, shall I? Perfect. And I did, but it messed up a lot of our plans, because we just started measuring the room and going, oh, we can do this, but this space, oh no, this doesn't fit. There's a bed there. Oh.
So yeah, up on this side here, there is a bed that folds down and folds back up. One of the puzzles that I made for this room was fitting to the other room that we had in as well, so we had to remake that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we would both say is, don't build things on a specific room. You're trying to just build it for a generic room that you're then going to try and theme it around.
Another thing is, if you're doing Christmas gaming, they will be outside the room with some cameras watching you and walkie-talkies if you get stuck. We're going to be sat here. You're going to spend the entire room with people who are stressed and who are going to question everything you have spent the last few months doing and how good your room design is to your face.
Or break stuff.
Yes, which is why you have to be in the room. So, if you want to do this, you're going to need a few things if it moves on. Otherwise, right, team people diverse way of thinking. Because if I designed a escape room by myself, logic puzzles wall to wall, really dull, and if you couldn't do math stuff or programming, you'd be very stuck very, very quickly, and this would be bad. And also, I would have no way of knowing my puzzles were too hard, because they would make sense to me. I give all my math puzzles to Annette and go, does this make sense to Annette? And it goes, I think I can do this. And it's like, okay, that's probably fair then.
So we cycle puzzles around each group. If it's too hard or doesn't make sense, we then make changes.
You need some way to share ideas, because you're going to be doing this probably not all living together. probably staggered around your work schedules and other things.
So-
You need a load of puzzles.
Well, I think it's a good one here. So we do a lot of ours via Google Docs and via Zoom. In terms of the team, we have London, Bristol, and Plymouth. So it's not like we can just go around the corner and do things either.
You're going to want a lot of locks, lots of padlocks, spare padlocks, because you're going to probably buy cheap ones, and cheap ones will break, and people will force them and break them. And ideally, padlocks that you know how to pick and reset, because somebody will lock them to a different number, almost certainly. And some willing victims who are willing to give up some of probably the Friday night convention, to come into your untested room, spend an hour and a half getting very stuck, where you go, oh no, that was bad, that was too hard, we need to move that, that's a problem, and so on and so forth.
So yeah, we generally have, is it 2 or 3 sets of playtesters?
2 or 3 sets of playtesters.
So one's the committee people who don't get a chance, and then we have 2 or 3 groups who we know who've played a lot of rooms before, will come in and think about things, and if it doesn't work, we know it's not just an issue for them, it's going to be an issue for everybody else.
Yeah. And then when you're moving, the first one you need is a really good poker face, because you cannot stand at the room desks and watch people as they don't do your puzzle, and sit there answerly and go, oh, should we do? Like, no, still faced, looking at your phone, listening for them going, they've got the right answer, but they've clearly failed to open the padlock with it, so maybe just go across and show them that it was the other side, and the line was there, or to press the button, or whatever. Patience, because as I said, they are going to... things that are really obvious to you, to design them, are not obvious people doing your escape room. And so you have to watch people go, it's just there. They're looking at it, they picked it up, they put it down again. So it's just turning over. No, they haven't. Oh, they've got it on, they moved it and they put it on the other puzzle. Oh, that's to make the life harder. All those things. And then people who want to come along and try it, because, you know, which we get enough, but there's an amount of stress to it. Especially when you're not sure if anyone's ever going to escape your room.
I mean, there's certain characteristics that we would say work together. We generally design a room for 4 people to come in. We have had people come in groups of 3 and been very successful.
I think we don't stick any puzzle in that would take 4 people to solve,
Yeah.
because somebody will no-show.
And we have had instances of 1 person attempting it on their own. Sometimes you do need 2 people to complete a puzzle, but we have seen people get past that.
So, first thing then, who are you designing the room for? Your ideal team is organised, with people who coordinate information, share it with each other, keep track of the items you found, keep track of the puzzles you're solving, are good at reading all the text in front of them, are good at solving puzzles, even though you're just sitting at them for a long time, or are good at doing physically dexterous things. Maybe even are thinking about the nature of the room and looking for things to work out how the room's going to get solved. What you've got instead is a team of people who will actively interrupt people halfway through a difficult puzzle so they stop doing it. Or just look at the whole room, find things, and tell no one anything they found.
Or even pick it up and take it with them around the room.
Yes, yeah. Like, this puzzle is really obvious if all the people on the table. Well, that puzzle's now 5 times as hard. Or we'll just try and break things because they get stressed. Or just try every number on a 4-digit padlock, because they'll get there eventually. They've got time. It's only half an hour, right? Or they'll just like focus on something. This is important. It must be the answer to every puzzle in the room. I'll keep trying it. We've already solved the puzzle. But
You've got to finish it, yes.
No outside knowledge is really key. You want to assume that everything that you solve the room is inside the room. Somebody comes in and go, I am the expert on 14th century monks. This looks like a tabard, which is from a slightly 10th century monk, so therefore this puzzle must be like, I didn't know that. You've invented an entirely new puzzle for yourself. You're never going to solve it. Great. This one we get a lot at escape rooms because you get people who've never done them before. And which is absolutely fine, they're not for everyone. It's less helpful as a team that depends on going, I don't like escape rooms, I don't think this is for me. I can't do this. This is too hard. How are you guys doing? What are you doing over here?
And then you go, and then you come back again next year. Like it.
could solve some puzzles the other team members couldn't do. No, they'll just flit around the room. They'll just look at something, pick it up. No, that's good. No. Got 5 minutes left. Oh, okay, maybe we should do a puzzle. The person who will solve a puzzle, go, yes, I have solved a puzzle, and then do nothing with the answer. Because clearly this was a puzzle by itself, and the entire point of the puzzle was just to solve it and walk away. And then the teammate doesn't turn up, which, given you're in a room in a hotel, you've got a limited amount of time, you need to get teams through it. Everyone going, oh yeah, no, he's going to be here in 5 minutes, he promised he would be. He drank really heavily last night. I'll just see if I can, his phone's, maybe his battery's dead. Can we wait 5 minutes? We need you to start, because we need you to leave.
I suppose to put some context in that, so when we ran the What Room the first year, Don joined us in the second year, we had 15-minute or 20-minute slots with a 10-minute reset. And of course, trying to get your head around what was going on in the room in 20 minutes is not a lot, but we were trying to put as many people through as possible. We've since moved to 45-minute slot, so instantly we've halved the amount of slots available, 15-minute reset, and that allows us to be a little bit more complex with the puzzles.
The average team needs about 15 minutes to acclimatise to being in an escape room. If your room is playing this long, they've got 5 minutes for them to solve puzzles in. And designing a set of puzzles that can take exactly 5 minutes to solve is very hard.
So that's why we ended up changing, so we have half the amount of slots, but twice the amount of time for each slot, which is why if you turn up as one person, you're unlikely to get all the way through, and you've taken a slot for somebody else. I mean, we run, what do we run? Is it 9 till 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday?
Whatever the committee put in homework, to a certain extent.
So we're running quite a lot of slots.
Plus
and that's
random
what
extra
we're
slots for our friends who are staying nicely, and we go across to the hook night and do the whole room with them.
But the biggest thing that we see here, having gone through the bad and the good, is people not talking to each other. This is where completely unknown teams.
So, for example, I'll be over going, I really need this. I'm missing something. And you will be going, I found this thing. What do I do with it? And they'll be set 10 feet from each other in a room a fifth of the size of this, going, I just need one missing piece. Guys, what do I do with this? I just need this one missing piece. And then they go, try talking, maybe talk to, maybe show your friend that thing you're holding. Could you just... yes, and don't ever underestimate the amount of effort people are willing to go to not actually solve the puzzle. And here is...
日頃가지고 있는 파이로それが200대는 그게 됐는데 이제 지금 아무도 시청자들이 우리한테 기대하는 것도 있어요 또. 아니 그리고 저 방금에서 얘기를 해야지 이랬지. 할 수 있어요?
There's always technical errors from the start.
형 이거 있는데.
No. People will try anything they can to not actually have to solve the escape room puzzles. Let's try and get back into internet. Still? Cool. Okay. Right, so, story and theme. So why story and theme and not just a room with some puzzles inside it? Well, ideally, because it will help the team. It won't, they'll ignore all of it, but theoretically, it will help the team. It will put everything in a context, which means that the solutions make some sort of narrative sense, and the next step makes some sort of narrative sense. So this was the year where, to escape the escape room, you identify which of your former classmates was going to murder you at the high school reunion, by saying of the other classmates he had already murdered. Right, and then this is what an escape room actually looks like. Because the key thing is really about transitions. How does solving a puzzle lead to the next stage of the room? Now if you're doing professionally and you have a building and full stores, you can create that naturally by going from a small room, like everyone's in an escape room. We started off in a very small room with one puzzle, and then you open the door and they're in a room with lots more puzzles. So you've got a nice, easy, forced teamwork to escape the small space you're stuck in, and now you've got a lot more options to get distracted by. You're in a single room, so you've got to find some way of leading people through that journey without being able to move them out of that space or move them into a different space. And so you need to think about how you get from puzzle to puzzle. And so there might be, in many cases, you get a key or a 4-digit code and unlocks another puzzle. But if you do lots, that gets a bit dull. And you also want to think about, you've got a team of 4 people. You give them a single sequence of puzzles, then 4 people stare at one thing, then they stare at the next thing, then they stare at the next thing. It doesn't happen because people get stuck, people get bored, people get frustrated.
And that was the issue with our 2016 one, the first year we started. It was a series of 4 puzzles in a linear order. If you couldn't get past one puzzle, that was it.
And so, yeah, so we tried a couple of short branches with the puzzle, which was definitely the hardest by itself, available for the entire 20 minutes over the room. We've tried something a bit more creative, where we turned the lights off on people halfway through the room. And if they'd hopefully unlocked the torches, they were going to have an easier time in the second half.
Or they got their phones out. So.
But the other thing you can do is, because you are sat in the room with them, and it's probably easy to do the next one, you can also have the transition is just, they give you something, and you give them the next bit of puzzle. You can be the human equivalent of the very clever electronic wiring that the guys have done to create a fake room. So, the lights going off was us going, they're at the right bit, they've set the right flame, we'll turn lights off on them now. And we'll start playing a different soundtrack or whatever. This one was the school themed one, and we tried doing, I don't know if anyone ever noticed it, but there was a timetable of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, history, geography, physics, and the order of puzzles was history, geography, physics. So if you looked at it, there was a guide in the room of, this is how you solve the escape room, part 1, part 2. Some people saw it, some people didn't, some people got confused by it, but again, that's later.
Just going back to one of the previous puzzles that we did, we had a book that we gave, and the book was the answer to the room. And the number of teams that came in and went and started doing stuff, and the puzzles, everything was related around the book.
Yeah. Open the book, access all the rest of the room. Get
Literally.
stuck accessing the book, don't do anything in the rest of the room.
But the puzzle to open the book was really simple.
Well, we thought it would. So getting the transition right is really key. That is what's going to make the wrong thing, and that's where you can get to be clever and do sound and lighting, other things, and give people a journey. And we made an awful lot of use of his and Annette's cat cage. We go, here's some puzzles we want you to do later, but to tell you they exist, you can lock them in a cage. You can see them all and know there's something more to go to. You can't access them right now.
Yeah, so here we had felt creatures that we made, that we locked into the cage. You could see that each one had a key around its neck.
You could even start solving that puzzle early if you were really determined. Yeah, and go. Yeah, so that one, this was the restaurant themed one where they literally handed a set of food items to a donator, and we gave them the next part of the order, and they solved the room in 4 stages. But we're happy in the room with them, so we must make use of ourselves as a prop. Right, now we go into puzzles.
I'll let Dom explain this one.
The first year I tried helping out, I tried making a puzzle which I thought was fairly challenging. I gave it to a couple of my friends who were of the right mindset, and they could get it, but it wasn't easy. I can't remember exactly how the puzzle works anymore. It was that hard. It's something like the colours are binary number positions and the directions are bitwise operators, and if you follow the colours and do the math, you get a 4-digit code, I think. Unsurprisingly, we didn't use this puzzle for some reason.
And I suppose that's one of the things we have got to put out there. Just because you've made the puzzle, don't mean you shoehorn it into the locked room. So as you spend time creating it, sometimes you have to work things out.
So there are 2 ways we think about the puzzle, right? The first thing is, what does the answer do and how does that get them somewhere? So you might go, we need a puzzle that gives you a 4-digit code, cool. We need a puzzle that's going to get the key or unlock something or physical item. And then the other one is, how long do you think this puzzle should take? Because when you've got, if you go back to a sequence second, the length of the room is the longest path of slowest puzzles through that room. So you go, well, if I want a room which is 20 minutes, then if that's a 2-minute puzzle, and that's a 2-minute puzzle, and that's a 2-minute puzzle, then that's 12 minutes of puzzles. So that's hopefully doable in 20 minutes, or whatever. And if you sort of think about things as 2-minute puzzles, or 4-minute puzzles, or divide things based upon the sequence.
So you're looking down here, you might have 2 2-minute puzzles over here. This might be a 1 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute. Because you also want to try and reinforce to your team coming in that they're being successful, because nobody doesn't like progression, at least some progression. So we generally put slightly easier puzzles at the beginning.
We try and put slightly easier puzzles at the beginning.
What we might think is easy,
Yeah.
and we're sitting there and going, how are you not getting this? You randomly come to it and it just doesn't make sense.
Let's talk about puzzle difficulty, because the hard thing is making your puzzles easy. So, you've got Wordle, so everyone through that. You've got Quirtle, do 4 of them once. You've got Upturtle, do 8 of them once, which I did to get the screenshot in my brain. You think you are designing Wordle. If you're lucky, you have achieved Quirtle. In all likelihood, you're giving them Octurtle. And the reason I think about it is about solving puzzles is about making a number of logical leaps, or answering a number of questions. Wordle is, what's the correct 5-letter word? And you make the first question, what's a good word to start with? There's little letters, and then what words fit, given what's left. And you're asking a small set of questions. You stick Wordle in an escape room, and you add the following questions. Is this a puzzle? Is this all of the puzzle? Is this more than one puzzle? Can I do this puzzle yet? What answer am I after? And all of that adds to the difficulty, which is why Wordle is always at least this in your room. And any puzzle you think is definitely easy enough is not.
Even when you get the answer, you've then got to link it to something else.
Yeah. And so you'll design a puzzle, and I'll give it to Phil. They go, can you do this puzzle, Phil? And Phil goes, I know this is a puzzle, and I know that the answer to this needs to be the 4-digit code. So yeah, I can solve this. I give it to you in an escape room, and you go, no, this is just a prop. Right, I'm going to whiz through the puzzles.
We're ahead of time so far.
Oh, cool. Okay, so logic puzzles. On the one hand, really easy to make easier versions of, or multiple versions of, because you can do them with more clues, or less complexity, or partially solved. But at the same time, quite hard to get transitions out of, unless you're going for a word, maybe, or a 4-digit code. And also, you're probably going to need to put some instructions on how you solve this logic puzzle in your room. Because, like, if you know how to solve Tower of Hanoi, which would be a horrible puzzle to work in an escape room, but no idea because you're just taking the pieces and just doing it correctly. If you know how to solve Tower of Hanoi, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't, you could spend hours doing it. So logic puzzles, you need some way of going, this is a, it's like going, the difference between a crossword and a cryptic crossword. You'd have to explain to me what a cryptic crossword is, and any hope of solving it. But as I said, you can make 5 versions of them from the easy to the harder, and then just stick the easiest one in the room for playtesting.
So with this, when we are playtesting, we might start off with more numbers. If it gets easy, we can take numbers away. That's why we do playtesting.
And then think about the pad of paper for this. Are you going to have enough paper for this? Are they going to write on the prop and therefore ruin it?
Excellent. Right. Can I just ask, before you say anything on this, okay, some of these, and these were expertly drawn by one of our team. Hi, Des. Hi. Some of these are really easy for me. Some of these take absolutely ages.
I'm sure at least some of these we cannot see them, probably.
So, I'll start with one of the easiest ones. Who can see what that is? So you're looking for numbers now. This is the thing. Without telling you, you don't know what you're looking for. If you're up close with things, it's very difficult to see them. And we've had people who stood away, turned around and saw it from the other side.
Notice how no one over here, you can see it from a good angle, can tell you what that is. So, yeah. There are also seasons.
Oh.
There was a harder versus puzzle. We have to identify both the season and the number inside it.
So, that one there is the 7. 4 is the 1.
And the thing is, we had these as small printouts, which means in some ways they were easier and in some ways were harder. It depended on light levels, things. So visual puzzles are great and they're very clever, but some people just won't see them. And it's very, very, you can't make an easier version of this, really, because you can maybe go around them with like really thick black marker, possibly, but you design them and you have to hope. And you might, worst case scenario, get a team of people who are just colourblind, and maybe that will ruin your entire puzzle. So they're very, very hit and miss. Great when they work, but they could be a massive time sink.
We do always try and make sure that there's a symbol as well as a colour in case someone is colourblind.
Yeah. So think about colourblindness, think about visual problems. Sound puzzles. Let's see if I can get this to play. So sound puzzles are interesting because on the one hand they're very good. On the other hand, you're locked in a room with people trying to solve them. So you might have to listen to the same sound clip over and over and over and over and over and over. Is that playing? Yeah. Any guesses what this is? Okay, now listen to this for 40 minutes, 7 times a day.
And it's not just sounds that we use for puzzles, we actually use them to try and change the ambience in the room as well. And one year, as we came to the countdown, you're about to be locked in, we used the Sonic the Hedgehog drowning sound.
And I can tell you that every team got to the 30-second mark and immediately gave up. Because no one is going to try and solve anything if you've got this Sonic drowning sound happening in the background. The other thing is you've got to think about where do you hide the speaker so they can't break it. How do you ensure everyone has access to sound files? If you've got headphones, how about sharing headphones between people? Like, there's an awful lot of things that go on.
Anymore. Just need to click back on the slide, please. So for that sound one, we actually had earphones for that one.
That one was in the room, yeah, speaker.
But we had a speaker stuck to part of the ceiling so people couldn't see it.
Okay, code puzzles. Again, like this set here, right, everyone can probably see it's 1 to 9. If you only had the 1, maybe the 2 and the 7, that's a much harder thing to spot. Code puzzles tend to fall into the camp of, if you've already seen them, they're very easy. If you haven't seen them, then you probably have to just give them the answer in some format. Because these are all different ways of basically turning letters into symbols. And so you can give people a code sheet and they can solve it, and somebody will have to sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, probably realistically, decoding 6 letters or something. But again, if somebody's seen it, they're just going to click through the puzzle, it won't matter. So it's difficult to judge difficulty on. Word puzzles. I'm still one from the Mark Webber YouTube video because it has about an example of most things in. Typos, acrostics, capitalization, numbers and words, font changes and things. People don't read, especially when they're stressed and they don't want to waste time. So, and they might be dyslexic. Spot the misspelled word, please, dyslexic person. Have fun. That's your answer. Physical puzzles is all props to Desmond. Main thing physical puzzles is you either need to have some other way to reset them. So in the case of the Manga Maze, a separate door we could unlock to put the key back on easily. Or, like this one, you have to get really good at doing the puzzle in reverse. And make sure everyone can do the puzzle in reverse and put it back to the same state every time. And if you are putting in backdoor locks and things, you now have a problem of how do I explain to people that this lock is not a lock for the room, but that doesn't mean that the entire item this lock was on is not part of the room. Because I have almost that trap in an escape room in Bristol, where we were told, yeah, don't touch these 2 locks, we were cool. And then we ignored the massive table that was locked with 2 things. It was obviously locked, they needed to reset it. We spent ages not looking at the table because we were told to ignore that lock.
So we started off with colour coding locks, which then confuses people because you're running colour codes in the room as well. We just have smiley faces that we stick on. Anything with a smiley face is something to help us reset.
And people still will forget under stress. Team of puzzles. There's a sort of so basically it's trying to, there's a video which I'll play in a second. It's trying to make the people coordinate and work together.
Isn't it that puzzle?
That's
the
puzzle.
sink hole, and this is underneath the sink, and that's the sink.
Okay, let's find the thing and see if we can make it play a video game. It still takes me a few more goes. So yeah, the other thing, so team puzzles are a great way to try and get people to work together because that will help them do the room. Somebody will definitely try and do it by themselves. Somebody will almost certainly succeed doing it by themselves.
We get back to the slide.
Yeah.
We did have somebody who had long enough arms to be able to do that while looking underneath. So they managed to do it on their own, but it is designed for two people.
So, but the other thing, if you're doing puzzles that involve more than one person doing something, think about where you physically put it in the room. Because there needs to be enough space for 2 or 3 con-goers to fit around it. And hotel rooms aren't very big, and so you might have to get a lot of space in the room to give that object, you know, elbow room. Finding things in the room puzzles. These are really popular people who do escape rooms because you feel like you've contributed. I found a thing. Great. Look, I got a thing, guys. Well, there's more than one of them. You need to make sure when you reset the room that they always get back to the same place. Anything you put in the room to tell you where to put it back will confuse people.
And also make sure that nobody walks out with them.
So
That makes the room very
we've
different.
got 5 pieces, we'll number them 1 to 5 so we know where to put them back. So we pick them up and go, oh, there's numbers back to these. They must mean something. But no, the numbers are for us. You can't explain resetting to people because you'll spoil the room doing that. So main thing is, should you do deliberate red herrings in your room? And I firmly think no, that there is a certain amount of different opinion in escape room designers I've read around. The reason why I don't think we should is that there's enough red herrings that the team are going to create for themselves. So, things are going to be red herrings. A previously solved puzzle, because somebody would not have seen that puzzle, not been involved with it, pick it up halfway through the room and go, guys, I've got to do this. How do you use this thing? It's like, you've solved it already. Other bits of puzzles, and placement is really important. If I put all the puzzle on one table, that's quite easy. Pick up half that puzzle and put it over here, that's much harder. If a team member picks up a different puzzle and puts it on this puzzle, they are now screwed. Players out of knowledge, things that they assume that you don't know about, they decide on part of the puzzle and therefore make the puzzle much harder because they're trying to solve the puzzle you didn't invent. Or you'll set dressing it, because you need to put things in the room to sell your theme, and there's a limit to how much that can actually be puzzles, as much as you want it to be. So every object in the room is a potential red herring for somebody.
What you mentioned,
Yeah, the radiator, the TV stand, the bed, the power sockets, the phone line, and anything anyone's moved. You know, that will confuse people. And there was a video I didn't put in of those escape room guys, but they literally are solving a puzzle, and the answer is doing something with phone, and they've picked up a safe and placed the safe such that anyone is looking at the phone on, they cannot see it because they put a big object in front of it. Right, so let's say you've done all your coordinates teamwork, you've designed a room, made up sequences, gone, this seems like a tensible, sorry for picturing that, that's one I had. And you've done a room and you bring them in it, and now you need to play test it. So, things to look out for. The invisible corner. If I was thinking about it, I'd put something in the corner of this room, but you can guarantee when you're play testing it, and when people are doing the room, that there'll be a table or corner room that no one will see for about 10 to 25 minutes. And then suddenly somebody go, hey guys, there's a table over here with 16 puzzles on it. No, loads glowing things.
So the reason that happens is that's the door to come in. So everybody comes in and looks there. not here.
So you can either use that to make things easier or harder. If it's important early, don't put it in the corner. If it's important late, maybe just stick it in the corner they're not going to see for half the room anyway.
This is the room that we thought we were going to have when we made some of these other puzzles. So one of the puzzles we made was actually a star chart to fit inside of here. So it's a sky. But the new room we went into didn't have lights.
And see it was hanging on the curtains. Like this one, this was a good example of something we should have called playtesting. There's a puzzle here with tarot cards and a map. And there's a different puzzle in the room which is 4 pictures and a diary with some text, which is the correct order to do the 4 pictures in. Because there was a picture of something fantasy themed next to a map of something fantasy themed, a lot of people went, these are the same thing, and started trying to find the pictures on the map. If we'd moved that one picture off that table and broken that mental link a little bit, that would probably have happened less. The other thing is, like if you give them a puzzle you need to stand for a long time, give people a chair. They're going to solve a code or a piece of maths or a logic puzzle. Let them sit down.
So that one was the logic puzzle that we had open for the whole 20 minutes.
One of mine.
We have lots of people doing this.
And that is actually the other thing I should mention in physical puzzles is don't assume everyone in your escape room teams can bend over, kneel down, get on the floor, look under objects. Not everyone is physically able. And you've only got limited space to stick stuff, so you are going to put an awful lot of stuff on table.
And here's another example of fixtures. So this isn't a bedroom, this was I think a meeting room. So the phone's here, there's a whole of sockets, there's a thing attached to the wall. People were fascinated by that.
But yeah, so you're looking for, the other thing playtesting is people find different things hard. So playtest group will get sequence A, puzzle 2 will be a nightmare for them. You go, okay, maybe we should make them easier. Team B will go, that puzzle was blindingly simple, and get stuck on another one instead. So and you only really, and the problem is, turning up into that room for the first time is the first time you get to design your escape room. Beyond, here's a sequence of puzzles. That's when physically placing things in the room is the hardest part of design. You do the last minute, a little bit to change. So that is also why puzzles you can make easier versions of and bring with you prepared are kind of great. Because you go, that puzzle was too hard for the playtest group, let's try the next playtesting with the easier version of it. Or you just assume you just give them the easiest version. So, this is the only reset plan I could find, because normally we write them on paper and share them at the time. Because you need to know in your realistically 7-minute window of 50 minutes you've got.
So we I suppose organised to make sure that we assume people are not going to finish, so that's the full 45 minutes. Generally people will arrive and they're taking their bags off and getting started, so that's a couple of minutes at the beginning. Then they want to know how to solve the puzzle that they were stuck on. So we then try and explain how to go through what the end game was. That takes 3 or 4 minutes. So from our 15 minutes, we're probably down to about 7 or 8 minutes.
And then the more they have done, the more you have to reset. And the more they have just moved things, or hidden things, or occasionally relocked things for you to be helpful. Have all the spare keys, know all the codes, know how to pick your locks.
Because they relock things, but they've taken the thing out, so we now have to go back through and unlock everything to put everything back in.
And order matters, right? If you've got a key for puzzle over here that has to be locked in that thing, you need to reset that one first, then lock the key away. Otherwise, you have to resolve that puzzle, or this puzzle, to open the key, to get the key to do, all this sort of thing. So that is the thing that's most important, and you need to have practiced. Everyone needs to be comfortable doing that, because it will be difficult.
I suppose the other things to mention here, remove the notes. So we did have one where we set the room off and then realised that the previous team's notes were still all written down. Just like that, go over there.
And take off notes to a few pieces of paper. Stress people write very hard, and we'll do the detective thing, which I kind of want to use in a puzzle one day, but then worried that would confuse things more.
Probably.
Right, and then running the room, poker face. Poker face. Do not judge. Do not facepalm. Do not laugh. Don't go, can you just talk, please? Don't leave over them. Because it's watching people fail is really addictive. And you might want to go to the convention occasionally and not just spend all time in a small room full of sweaty, stressed people.
It's entertaining and frustrating seeing how people approach puzzles, and you sit there and go, it's the easiest puzzle, it'll take you a minute, and they've come from it from a completely different angle and thought about something else about it, and you're going, I didn't even think about that.
And in a random thought that actually fits what I'm about to say, jumping back to sequences, if they sequence break, don't worry about it. They've made their life harder.
They're potentially easier if they bypass the series of puzzles.
Yeah, but the thing is, they don't know they bypassed series puzzles. So they'll go back and solve the one they bypassed anyway. And they'll be more confused because they don't know what the answer they just got is for. And they've lost all the context and the story that was supposed to make it easier for them. So, yeah, sequence breaking, don't worry about it. You can squeeze things in the end, it's fine.
So, that takes us, that's the last slide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, are there any questions? Right, there's no questions on what next year's like is.
We haven't started designing yet.
It sounds as if you're really the team with the maximum number of people. Is there a way to match up people who want to try it but already have a team? Or is that just a recipe for getting 4 people with the same subset of skills and nobody who does something essential?
The teams and strangers, when we managed to get that to happen, because we normally say leave a number of obs if you want to join in the space. If that organisation comes together, which it very rarely does, because you ask people who don't know each other to schedule things at the same time, but they are the best teams, because they just talk to each other the whole time, because they don't know each other. So they just talk to each other and explain things and check things all the time. And they tend to succeed really well.
You can tell people who've done what rooms, because they'll storm right in, they'll get off to a steady pace and just go X, Y, Z, yes, that, the, needs key, there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 padlocks. So they know what they're looking for. Whereas other people just go in and stare at one thing.
I'm sure this phone's got the puzzle, guys. I know it looks like a hotel fixture.
So yeah, ops do run. When we open the slots, they do say if you can't find a team, leave it and try and get people together. Usually it's teams of 3 or 4 that already know each other.
In some ways, the harder bit is when a team doesn't turn up and
Yeah.
you're going like, we've got 5 minutes, can we find 4 people who want to spontaneously turn up in 5 minutes' time? Because they don't, we can't be sat in the room with 5 people.
Do you ever get an instance where someone is unable to solve the puzzle and is rude about it? Like, how would you kind of deal with that situation, or has that never happened?
Yes, I think we have people who have been...
We have some mild sort. It's usually just like, you're like, oh, well, that's not obvious, but it tends to be quite clearly just they're stressed and they're just taken out.
What happens, I find, is you'll walk through the bar and you'll hear somebody bitching about the room.
I mean, we did used to put tokens in the room, so at a certain point we had tokens available. If you wanted to donate £1 to charity, we would give you a hand on a particular puzzle. But people don't come prepared with money.
And some puzzles are really hard to get a hand with sometimes.
I'm going to say, what is your favourite puzzle that you've had in one of these rooms? You can answer separately.
I was really impressed with Annette's bath bombs with dissolving water to get it to paper out. That was a wonderful bit of clever effort I definitely couldn't do myself.
That was mine.
So we had bath bombs that had stuff in, and we put them all together and dissolved it in water to get the thing out.
Trying to make sure that they were the right size to dissolve in a certain amount of time
Yes.
was a nightmare.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's my I don't know, I can't remember.
How do you reset that?
Because we made like 40 of them. It also meant that we had water sloshing around in the room, which was a bit of a nightmare. Trying to keep everything in one
The
place.
good thing was, that was when we moved rooms,
Yeah.
and that room had a bathroom,
Yeah,
so we could get rid of the water.
that
It's
did
like, actually, that helped.
I mean, we've come up with a number of puzzles and ended up going, no, that's not going to work.
I had, like, there's a sink maze was cool.
Yes.
I like that. That was very well constructed.
Actually, I know which one I really liked. It was one of Des's puzzles where he made a maze and then put additional transparent walls in it. So you heard people going all the way around and then it click. There's a wall there.
That is when salt has happened.
Yes.
I did like the temperature reading one actually.
Oh yes, we had one where we had a laser thermometer and a shelf, and you had to read which one was hot, and that we kept being asked how we did that. We boiled the water in a kettle for every reset. We just put them into coloured bottles, so and the temperature gradient was enough that it stayed warm throughout. Tip the water back in, reboil.
Do you have a favourite moment from someone trying to solve one of your rooms?
Any time the team has actually escaped.
So, yeah, some teams have done very well escaping. I mean, they've just blasted through and you're like, what? We've got to make this harder, and then no. These are not normal. we try and make it so people can get to the end, but I mean, the first couple of years, virtually nobody got out.
Yeah, there was a real anxiety,
yeah, we're making these
especially if by the end of Saturday no one's escaped. You're like, should we change the room for Sunday and make it easy for the second teams, or is it unfair when everyone's done it already? And that's the question there's no good answer to.
So I think we've gone from no pass through to about 40% pass now. And we're still
not
not
that
I
much.
wouldn't say that high, I'd say 20%.
It's,
I think we aim for
difficult.
40 and
Yeah.
achieve like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's difficult getting that balance. It really is. Because when you've got 45 minutes and you've just built everything in the room and you can't rebuild another puzzle because some of these have taken us weeks to build.
And comparatively to any other escape room, you probably have an audience who are not used to escape rooms. So you've got people who wouldn't normally sort it out. Kind of thing.
I was going to say, how much have cosplayers made life far harder for themselves?
People with massive great false nails go in and are like, I can't touch anything.
All the time we get the big cuff skirts.
Yeah.
It's like, there's 3 of you come in with cuff skirts, you're taking up most of the room. Any questions?
I've only done online escape rooms, most of which, except those where I particularly like but I think I've learned to recognise what's a significant thing. I just don't know what it's significant for. I strongly suspect if I ever try a physical one, my sense of what's a significant thing will be completely miscalibrated.
I think for our rooms, it tends to be, it looks distinctly from them.
In professional escape rooms, it tends to be, why are there wires coming out the back of this?
Any others?
Has the experience of making escape rooms here improved or spoiled the experience of going to professional escape rooms? So you're like, oh, this is neat what they've done here, or oh yeah, I've done that, I've seen that.
No, there's some. So I've not done anywhere in this, but we've done some and been. We've taken some ideas and simplified them.
Yeah.
I remember there's one distinctive escape room that I went into that they used there was a picture of 3 things,
Yeah.
and it said equal the answer, and you had to weigh them on a scale, and the amount in grams gave you the combination to open the lock. One of them was a gas mask. Gas mask was sucking oxygen out of the air and becoming heavier. So as we put everything on, we checked every lock in the room, and nothing was opening. They came on the screen and said, you are supposed to weigh these 3 items to get the code. And we just drew up this point, we have. And then we started ticking through on all the locks until we found it dropped about 1 or 2 grams. So we changed the meter. And that's one thing that they said they'd never had an issue with before, which I found pretty strange. It's got an active carbon filter in, so as a result, it's becoming heavier. Those are the things that I would never have thought about in terms of what you've got to think about when you're running a room to watch out for.
I've got Grumpy Room where I didn't think the feedback for solving puzzles was good enough. when there was a subtle sound that played in the background that if you didn't hear it, you didn't know you'd done the thing, and there was no feedback for it. So I guess judgy it sometimes, or stealing ideas.
Okay, thanks guys.